Good morning and welcome to Hot Topic and Fresh News. This Monday, the 27th of March, 2024. We're here to deliver some urgent news. A Singapore-flagged cargo ship, the Dali, has crashed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge, an incident that has devastatingly resulted in presumed fatalities. The vessel was previously held in Chile due to propulsion issues, and in the minutes leading up to the crash, there was a total blackout of engine and electrical power. Among the missing are workers from El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico. The U.S. Coast Guard is examining damaged shipping containers from the crashed vessel, some of which contain potentially hazardous materials. The Port of Baltimore is currently closed, affecting 4 ships unable to leave and 20 others waiting to enter. Investigations led by the National Transportation Safety Board are underway, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are assisting in the aftermath of the bridge collapse. President Joe Biden has called on Congress to support recovery efforts and cover the full repair costs, as rebuilding the bridge will be a costly and time-consuming task. The Synergy Marine Group, managing the vessel that hit the bridge, has been involved in at least 3 deadly incidents since 2018. That's all for now. Please stay tuned for a more in-depth analysis later in the program. Hello, listeners. This is your host, Emily, bringing you the latest news on Hot Topic and Fresh News.
And I'm David Newstalk, here to offer some commentary on today's top stories.
We're with you every day, same time, same channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date with us. Now, straight to the hot topics.
Can you tell us more about the cargo ship Dali and its history?
The Dali is a Singapore-flagged cargo ship. It had been held in Chile last June over a propulsion issue, and an inspector found pressure gauges for the vessel's heating system were unreadable. Interestingly, this wasn't the first time the Dali was held in a foreign port.
What about its condition leading up to the crash?
In the minutes leading up to the crash, there was a total blackout of engine and electrical power. This certainly must have contributed to the unfortunate incident.
So this catastrophic event was foreseeable?
The ship had been inspected 27 times since it was built in 2015 and had 2 deficiencies in record. It's hard to say if this was entirely unforeseen.
Now, shifting our focus to the victims of this tragic event, can we talk about the recovery efforts?
Recovery efforts are ongoing for the 6 people who are sadly presumed dead. The operations were halted overnight due to unsafe conditions, including unstable sections of the bridge and shipping containers hanging from the vessel.
Isn't it alarming how quickly the rescue operation turned into a recovery operation?
It is indeed concerning, and it surely adds to the gravity of the situation.
And what about the potential hazardous materials on board of the crashed vessel?
The U.S. Coast Guard is currently assessing that risk, examining damaged shipping containers, some of which contain potentially hazardous materials.
It seems to me that incidents like these indicate a need for stricter regulation and more rigorous inspection of such vessels. Don't you agree?
While I see your point, we should also consider that every vessel has a unique set of circumstances and operating conditions, so more regulation may not necessarily prevent these incidents.
That's okay. It's essential to have disagreements. It helps us to view the situation from various perspectives.
You're right, I'll definitely give this some more thought.
Can we talk about the identities of the victims?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, 6 people are presumed dead since the bridge collision. Among them is Maynor Sandoval from Honduras, who was a father of 2. There are also 2 missing workers from Guatemala and several Mexican nationals among the victims.
What's happening with the investigation?
The National Transportation Safety Board is leading an investigation. They're set to board the vessel to begin collecting evidence.
What led to the ship crashing into the bridge?
According to Clay Diamond from the American Pilots Association, there was a total blackout of engine and electrical power on the ship minutes before the impact.
What does this mean for the bridge's reconstruction?
As per Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, rebuilding the bridge won't be quick and will carry a hefty price tag. President Biden has called on Congress to support recovery efforts and even suggested the federal government should cover the full repair costs.
How is the incident affecting the Port of Baltimore?
The port is currently closed and clearing the channel is a top priority. As of now, around 4 ships cannot leave the port and roughly 20 others are waiting to get in.
Can you update us on the identities of the victims?
Certainly. Unfortunately, we've received more information about the victims. Another person identified is Miguel Luna from El Salvador. He is a father of 3 who has been living in Maryland for over 19 years.
The community must be deeply affected by this tragic incident.
Absolutely. Gustavo Torres, the executive director of CASA, a nonprofit that serves working-class and immigrant families, expressed deep sorrow over the incident, particularly since Miguel Luna was a longtime member of their community.
Has there been any support provided to the families of the victims?
Yes, the same organization, CASA, is providing humanitarian support to the families as they navigate this tragedy and seek answers about their missing loved ones.
And what about the aftermath of the bridge collapse?
More than 1,000 personnel from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will assist in the aftermath of the collapse. The team includes engineering, construction, contracting, and operations specialists who will work alongside local, state, and federal agencies to clear the federal shipping channel and remove the bridge. You know, this incident brings to mind a concerning pattern. Ships managed by the Synergy Marine Group, the same company that managed the vessel that hit the Baltimore Key Bridge, have been involved in at least 3 deadly incidents since 2018. According to various reports, these accidents occurred in Australia, Singapore, and the Philippines, with fatalities and serious breaches of safety management procedures.
That is indeed troubling. By a stroke of luck, I recently came across a piece of news that also involves the same company. In 2023, a Synergy-managed tanker collided with a dredging ship in the Philippines, leading to the death of at least 1 sailor. It seems the company's safety protocols need a serious review.
Absolutely. In fact, in the Singapore incident, the report noted that if a risk assessment had been completed beforehand, it might have identified the risks involved, and the appropriate safety measures could have been included. This suggests a recurring issue with safety assessments.
I see. Also, the victims of the Baltimore Bridge collapse include not only Americans but also Mexican and Guatemalan nationals. This catastrophe has wider implications and affects several communities.
That's correct. The involvement of nationals from various countries underscores the fact that this disaster is not just a local issue but one of international concern.
Can you share any updates on the potential hazards the ship might have carried?
Yes, the U.S. Coast Guard is currently examining more than a dozen damaged containers from the ship that crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Some of these containers hold potentially hazardous materials and are being inspected by an elite Coast Guard team. They are also investigating the ship's manifest to determine any possible health risks.
And what about the potential fuel spill from the ship?
The officials are monitoring about 1.8 million gallons of potential marine diesel spill from the ship. Although this is a worst-case scenario, first responders are taking precautions to minimize any potential fuel spill.
How does this amount of fuel compare to what's usually carried by a ship of this size?
1.8 million gallons is not an unusual amount of fuel for a ship of this size, according to the officials.
And the search operation for the missing people?
Unfortunately, the search operation ended in a heartbreaking conclusion. The 6 people who were believed to be part of a road construction crew are now presumed dead after the bridge collapse.
So the bridge collapse happened after a cargo ship measuring 984 feet hit one of the bridge's pillars.
Indeed, and this led to a truly heartbreaking conclusion to a challenging day, as stated by Maryland Governor Wes Moore.
And about the victims, how many were there?
8 people were on the bridge when it collapsed. At least 2 were rescued, with 1 taken to the hospital and later discharged. Unfortunately, 6 presumed dead, including 2 construction workers from Guatemala.
What exactly happened during the incident?
Video evidence shows the moment the bridge fell into the water as the ship hit one of its pillars. Analysis indicates that the ship's lights flickered and it veered off course before hitting the bridge. The crew on the ship was able to issue a mayday before the collision, which allowed authorities to stop incoming traffic.
What about the response efforts?
Dive teams from various state and local agencies were brought in to assist in rescue operations. The mission started with 50 personnel and continued to grow before the Coast Guard announced it was suspending its active rescue operation and transitioning to a different phase.
The investigation must be ongoing, right?
Absolutely. The National Transportation Safety Board is investigating why the crash occurred and whether the bridge had ever been flagged for any safety deficiencies.
And what about the bridge's reconstruction?
According to U.S. Senator Chris Van Hollen, the path to rebuilding the bridge would be long and expensive. Senior White House advisor Tom Perez stated it's too early to determine the timeline for the rebuild.
Who will shoulder the costs of rebuilding?
President Joe Biden expressed his desire for the federal government to bear the full cost of rebuilding the bridge, noting that it will not wait for the company that owns the ship, Dali, to shoulder the costs. Funds could come from the Federal Highway Administration and the bipartisan infrastructure law, but additional funding from Congress might be required. Thanks for joining us today on Hot Topic and Fresh News. We covered the recent bridge collapse in Baltimore, dissecting the latest reports and updates. Your support means everything to us. Don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications so you never miss an update. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, why not share it with your friends and colleagues? Leave us a comment too. We love hearing from you.
And don't be a stranger. We're here every day, delivering the news you need to know in a way that keeps you engaged and informed. And speaking of informed, you'll definitely want to tune in soon. We've got some interesting things on the horizon.
We're truly grateful for your time and your interest. Looking forward to our next episode.
As are we all. So until next time, Emily and David, stay in the loop, keep your eyes on the news. Our channel's content will amuse.